let's face it, I'm sure we've all been in the situation where you arrive home from work in a given work day and you feel absolutely slammed, or you feel like you've been on this massive roller coaster all day. So sustained energy is absolutely pivotal to our performance and to optimal performance. And we wake up every day with only a set level of, say, energy credits for the entire day. It's up to us to make sure that we optimize those energy credits, just like a bank account, throughout that given day. And that, as a resilience pillar, I think it's actually one of the most fundamental resilience pillars, because we can't show up as our best selves if we're absolutely exhausted. So this episode, our final episode in our resilience series, which is all about you owning your space and showing up as your best self, we are focusing on energy. How do we optimize energy to make sure that we are performing as our best selves?
And the area I'm going to start with, actually I'm going to look at two areas. The first one's around sleep and the second one's around fuel. And it might seem a bit odd to think about sleep when we think about our energy credits, but actually if we're not waking up refreshed and we're not getting the right type of sleep that we need, then actually we're almost not doing ourselves any favors, are we? So if we think about sleep, it's not necessarily the length of sleep that's important, although you need a decent amount of it. It's the quality of sleep that we really want to get in touch with. And actually, when we think about what's happening with our sleep, one of the things, and we've just tapped into this in a previous episode, is around what are our habits and routines and what are our behaviors in terms of what happens in that 35 to 45 minutes before we're going to sleep. So what are the things we're doing? Are we setting ourselves up, and are we triggering those emotions and hormones in our brains that go, oh yeah, that's right, now it's time for Sarah to go to sleep? So does my brain and my body know what's actually going to take place when I start doing certain actions? So one of the practical tips we want you to have a think about around sleep is, what am I doing in that half hour to 45 minutes before I go to bed? Am I still tapping away on a computer looking at a bright screen? Am I drinking caffeinated drinks, which are not going to help us sleep very well? So what are the habits that we've got in place to help us have the best night's sleep that we possibly can? And actually, when we continually build and have a set routine right before bed, we are going to trigger the right muscle memory and actually the right hormones in our brains. They're actually going to help us get into the right type of sleep that our body needs, so that we wake up feeling refreshed and restored, ready to put out all of that energy that we need for the next day. So my challenge for you, what's happening with your routine and what can you do differently? The second area I'm going to look at is around fuel. We haven't called it food specifically, but it's around fuel. And I love the term fuel because we then get to have a think about, if I'm about to do a really big road trip, what do we do with our car? So we make sure they've got the right type of fuel for the distance we're going to travel. And actually, when we think about what's happening in our day, that's what energy does. So what we're taking in is our fuel. So depending on what kind of day we're going to have, what are we taking in that's going to give us the right types of energy at the right times of the day, so that we can deliver to the expectations or to the goals and projects and meetings that we've got set up for the day. And if you're not quite sure whether something's working for you or not, my challenge to you is to actually just take a step back and keep a food diary. So having a look at what are the things that are going on in my day, and actually what is the fuel that I'm taking in, and is that helping or hindering me, and what can I do differently? Because we do need different types of fuel at different times of the day, so that we've got the right types of energy to actually have the right outputs for all of the things that are going on for us every single day.
10 years ago, I was working with a contact centre, and there were about 80 people in their contact centre, and we were looking at sales performance. And one of the key areas that they wanted to do was to do a massive technical craft training series. And yes, technical and focusing on our craft is really, really important. So we designed this amazing program. I got everybody into the room. I started having a chat to everybody, and I went, okay, let's just pause this for a moment. And so what I did is I changed it from focusing on craft to focusing on resilience, and just had a general conversation with them. And what was absolutely fascinating, they knew what they needed to be doing, but what they weren't able to do was execute it because they were too exhausted. And so one of the things that I learned from them was that most of their day, a 24-hour period, was spent sitting or laying down. And if we think about it for a moment in a contact center, as a prime example, or could be in this, especially if they're all sit down chairs, and that is they were sleeping for around about 8 hours a night. They would get up, they'd make their breakfast, they'd sit down, they'd eat their breakfast. They would then hop on the car, drive to work, or hop on the bus and take the bus to work. They'd arrive at work, get their water, sit down at their desk. Every break, they would get up, and this is no exaggeration. They would walk probably about 20 meters, grab a coffee, sit down in their lunchroom. Then at the end of their lunch break, they'd get up, they'd move back to that 20 meters, sit back down and do that. And it was just this recurring theme. And of course, then when they went home at night, once again, they'd leave work, they'd go home. They were so exhausted. Guess what they did? They laid on the couch and watched Netflix. And I'm not picking on contact centers here, but it's a prime example of a lot of people that are sitting down in their jobs. It could be office workers, it could be anybody where you are sitting. And so one of the key challenges that I'm focusing on today is the resilience pillar around movement. Our bodies are made to move, they're made to groove, they're made to, we want to move. And if we're sitting down, what we're doing is we're bringing our energy down, and we're creating blocks within our bodies where we're not going to be able to function well. So my challenge to you is do a little bit of an audit of how much time in a given work day are you either sitting down, or, including your sleep here, laying down. And I think you might be surprised at how much. So when we look at it from an office worker or a contact center perspective, what you may find is you might be sitting or laying down 19 to 21 hours of that day. Pretty scary. So have a look, because when we focused on the movement for this particular team in the contact center, and my next performance pillar, which is all around hydration, we had an immediate lift in performance by 30%. So I don't know about you, but most businesses are looking for a lift of 30% quite quickly. And all we focused on wasn't technical skills, it was movement and hydration. And the reason we focused on hydration was, if you think about our human bodies, we're around 70% of water within our bodies. So unless we're hydrating on a regular basis with the correct type of hydration, like water, all of a sudden we're not going to get our performance, because our bodies, because we are over 70% water, we need water to function well. Our body needs it, our organs need it. So if we want to perform at our best, we need to make sure that we're hydrating correctly. Now, everybody's demands are different. The working environment that they're working in, their temperature that they're working in, any health conditions that they may have. But one thing to really note is make sure that you are drinking water regularly throughout the day, and ideally you drunk the bulk of your water round about 1 to 2 o'clock in the afternoon. And what that will do will enable you to have a lot more clarity in the afternoon, and it'll also mean you have a better sleep because you're not getting up to go to the bathroom. Last thing I just want to focus on as we're going through this are some small habits you can put in place to really make sure that you move, or to make sure you're increasing your hydration. Here are some tiny habits. So the first one is, after I stand up to walk into a meeting, I will fill up my water bottle and take my water bottle into a meeting. To be honest, I never do any meetings without my water bottle or some water. One around movement. What about creating a habit around incidental exercise? Why not make sure that you take the stairs rather than taking the lift? What about when every time that you stand up, that you actually do a series of 5 stretches, just to make sure that you're limbering up regularly? And so all little things make such big changes. And when you actually do deliberately create some amazing habits, create those routines around those resilience pillars, you will be amazed how quickly your performance, your thoughts, your clarity, and your mood will all go up to the next level.
And this is the last episode in our 5-part series around resilience. We hope you've got some really useful tips, and actually you're able to take some snippets away and have a think about what your leadership style is looking like, and how these little tips along the way are going to help you build your resilience so that you can be a more effective leader than where you are today. If you've got any questions, of course, DM us or post on Facebook or LinkedIn, and we will happily answer those questions for you, and we look forward to catching up with you again soon.